Hello, Liberty Minute. Okay. I don't know anything about you really. So far, I think it's possible we could have a conversation about this. I don't mind if you get a little bit, however you happen to get that I don't know about because I haven't talked to you before. You seem pretty civil. I guess I don't mind if you get a little heated sometimes. You did ask me about my taxes. I thought, I'm an individualist. Okay, now I consider myself a progressive libertarian. We could talk about that, but I come from a libertarianism, and to me it's all about individual sovereignty and whatever maximizes that. Totally open-minded to maximizing individual liberty, defining what that means, and so on. Now, you could think of me as a liberal or whatever. That's the progressive part. I think we need social infrastructure in order to achieve that. But be that as it may, I believe, I would love if we could just, regrid the earth into countries from, 1 to, 100 million people or whatever the size would be, with a median around, 30 to 150. Again, we run the statistics or have a vote or whatever. And we all try different governments. That would be great. And it's possible you would get the kind of nation you wanted, and I would get the kind I wanted, and they'd be different. That'd be the point, right? Okay, so I'm friendly to that, even though I wouldn't want to live in the country you'd create, I don't think. So, the point of the thought experiment, I'm very straightforward about it. It's supposed to have a compelling aspect to it, but I don't believe in any secret mechanisms. You can point out whatever if you think it's biased or has a bias. I think it's very technical. Okay, I look at the system we have now. It's not acceptable. And there's various other systems and laws you can invoke in this system, or you can imagine just entirely different systems. And ultimately, you have to figure out how would you transition. Like, if you're going to privatize everything, how do you sell it? But we're ignoring that for a bit, and you can't in real life. That could be the important part. But you've got to start somewhere, right? So in this thought experiment, we're thinking about different systems, and we're going to talk about a certain kind of libertarianism, a propertarianism, a property-based libertarianism, right? That says a property-based philosophy will lead to this individual sovereignty. I think that's the link in these kinds of libertarianism. But anyway, so imagine, though, something leftist as an alternate case before we get to the libertarianism. For example, let's say I want to have democracy in the workplace. There's not really a name for this, but it's some sort of leftist thing, right? You'd have democracy in the workplace. I don't know how you do it. Okay, and you just make a law, though. Now, that would definitely change the system, right? Now, you'd probably say for the worse. Most people, liberals, everybody I've ever brought up this thought experiment to say for the worse, which is interesting because, democracy every couple of years, it's not like we're very into democracy. Very little bit is enough for us, but that's another subject as well. But you see, what I'm saying is that would change the system. That would necessarily change the system, an idea like that. And what I'm pointing out with libertarianism is that it is possible to own a bunch of property, right? And say to come on this property, we have roads and stuff, to come on this property you have to pay a fee. The fee could be equivalent to taxes. It's a thought experiment, but you can map one-to-one every single thing as a fee. Right? I can own a piece of property and say, look, you can build your house on it and live there as long as you want and give your kid the right to live there and tear the house down and build another one. And all you have to do is pay me, $800 a year. That's your property taxes. But it's done as a fee. It's just a change in words. And I'm pointing out that if the system could be the same, mind you, democracy in the workplace, that would change the system. The system could not be the same if you did that change. But I could do a change in libertarianism where some liberal wealthy guy buys the property, and if not of the whole United States, then of a town, where does the market automatically come from? to me, the system analysis of a system that guarantees some sort of individual liberty has to have a means to balance itself. You know what I mean? A machine will get out of kilter, and the way you solve that is you have some sort of counterbalancing. So if it goes too much one way, it'll go back and forth. Like supply and demand kind of feed back and forth, right? So where is that in the libertarianism? It's anything can happen. Why would a situation like that, you say, well, there's a market demand. Well, yeah, but you can leave. So let's talk specifically in this thought experiment. You could leave the country if you're not willing to pay the taxes. And you could leave now. Now, they make it too difficult, but within the realm of this idea, I'm sure you can understand, you can leave now. There's a continuation of the one-to-one relationship. Now, is there another country? No, they all charge taxes, fees. So imagine if they're all charging fees, they're all calling it private. They all sell themselves off like Russia at the end of the Soviet Union, to the richest mobsters around at bargain basement prices. Don't give the money to the people somehow. I don't understand that. It seems like if you sell off it should be reverse taxes and it should go back to the people. And I'd be willing to even try it in that case. And I'm very much for federalism and being able to try different kinds of governments in the United States as well with the states. But if all you have to do is change the language, and now there is a certain changes. Right now, supposedly I'm the owner of the land and the government's just holding it as my representative. And that goes away. It would just be whoever owned the government. Right, so I think it would change things because at least now I have a claim to make that person that's acting like the owner answer to me, because officially, even if they're ignoring the fact a lot of the time, officially I'm, part owner of it. And so, whereas if it's owned by an individual person, I have no right of redress. But my point is that, let's say that you're assuming that individual person will give you a better deal. And a lot of people, we argue, we'll get a worse deal under that. But I'm saying, consider what if the deal stayed the same? Because as a thought experiment, I'm not asking you if it would happen, could George Soros... look, privatizing United States federal property, who could buy it? Who could afford it? You'd have to own or finance. You'd have to finance the rich people that bought it, or I guess the plan I'd most go with is somehow distributing it out to people. But the fact is, I don't think that will really work. And fundamentally, it is related topics. Like, I don't think you can create a philosophy on social structures or individual sovereignty based on property. I believe that property rights are a human right, right? But that doesn't mean that you can define all human rights in terms of property. I just don't believe that. Now, you're in possession of your body, but it's not really property. Property's tradable, and you can't really trade. You can't give away the keys to this property like you can the keys to your car. You maintain it. You can promise to keep doing what they say, but that's a service that is continually relying on your will and the fact that you are choosing. And this all relates to questions of, if you're 18 and you sold yourself into slavery or indentured servitude, can you really do that? At 50, when you're still enslaved, because of a 50-year indentured servitude term, are you really bound by this? Are you the same person as at 14? What's the law of contract ultimately when you have something that is akin to slavery? And why is it impossible to actually sell a person or sell yourself? Or is it? Right? And you can model the body as one's own self-property, and that's what a lot of the anti-tax libertarians I know like to do. But I think it's a crude tool for that. The fact is, to have human rights, the right to pursue happiness and so forth, the right to pursue life and to have a chance to live and try to survive on your own, the attempt. Because I've been working since I was 13 years old. I believe in work. And that right is just like a one-line poem about whatever the human rights are. We could talk about them, and the right to hold property and have property, and the right to have your possessions. But even possession, it comes from a human right. There's no way to pursue happiness without that, I don't think. But still, even possessions are not exactly modeled very well by property. I mean, when you're in someone's house and you have a glass, it's not like you're stealing from them, obviously, that they're letting you do it. Yes, and they also wouldn't come up and get it. And let's say you picked up a glass that was a little bit fancier, their grandma's glass, and you're using that. They probably wouldn't come up and be rude, like, why are you touching now? You're stealing that because I didn't allow you to do that. That's over there. The glasses are there. People don't do that because possession is 9/10 of the property. And there's sub-property, and you can use property to model it still and say, oh, well, there's this motive. They're kind of a sub-owner, and, there's an understanding. Fine. But I think there's better ways to understand it. And it goes back to the body is your automatic possession. Things that you're using are the automatic possession. So I like that idea, the idea of property through homesteading, property through use. But of course, you can't carry that to the point where you're just some hipster that thinks that means you can take a bike when somebody's not riding it. So, anyway, don't make assumptions. Cheers.